So you're going to follow the link to photopea.com in order to create your David Hockney inspired Photojoiner. And in photopea.com, you're going to go File, Open, and find your homework. It may well be in the downloads. You just need to search for it and then open it up into a window here. So you can see I'm using a Year 8 student summer term self-study here. It's a lovely, lovely photograph. So what we are going to do is we are going to click on this background, make sure that we've got it highlighted so you can see the marching ants around the image. You can see the eye is open and the background is selected here. If I close the eye, you can't see the image, okay? So we're going to click on this image and then we're going to take the opacity down a little bit so it's a little bit see-through, and that will help us when we're building up our Photojoiner. We're going to go down to the bottom here where you've got the delete or the bin. The next tab in, you've got new layer. So I'm going to click on new layer. Okay, so I've got 2 layers now, but I want to make sure that I'm working to begin with the background layer. I'm going to go over to the menu toolbar over on the side, and I'm going to use the rectangle selection tool, and I'm going to start to think about how I might split this image up. So you might start top left, top right, wherever you might want to take your images from. So I'm going to click and drag. And if you think about David Hockney's Photojoiners, it's quite often square or rectangular shapes that he uses. So it's difficult to see, but I've actually got marching ants around the area that I've selected, and I double checked that I'm on the background layer. So I'm going to either go edit, copy, or you could use your hotkeys, Control C. I'm going to click on the layer and I'm going to go either edit, paste, or my hotkey is Control V. Now, because the background layer, I've changed the opacity so it's quite faint. You can see on this layer, you can see I've got layer 1 selected, but that's where my layer is. If I close the on the background, that's what my image is starting to look like. So I'm just going to repeat that process again. So I'm going to click on a new layer, and that is now layer 2. I'm going to click on the background layer, and I'm going to use the quick selection tool to select another rectangle or square shape, edit, copy, or Control C, onto layer 2, edit, paste, or Control V, and you can see I've started to layer it up. I'm going to repeat that again. So new layer, layer 3, background is selected. I'm going to use my quick selection tool, edit, copy, onto your layer, edit, paste. There it is. And then what we might want to do is just move your layers around a little bit so they're a bit more staggered. They're not sort of sitting on top of each other quite so much. Might be quite nice to do some slightly different shapes. And there it is there. Let's perhaps find another shape that we'd like to do. So we're going to do a longer shape here. Onto layer 5. I might just move that a little bit so it's a bit more staggered. And what you're aiming to do really is to overlap your layers so that there's an element of perhaps sort of building up a little bit. And you want probably somewhere in the region of about 8 or 9 layers, I would suggest. I'm on layer 7, just going to move that slightly. And then I'm going to go to layer 8 on my background, and my last part of my image I'm going to put along here. Layer 8, and there it is. Okay, now if you do anything wrong and you're not happy with what you've done, above our layers swatch here we've got our history swatch, so you can go back through the history swatch and undo your steps chronologically. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close the eye on the background, and we can't see that background anymore, but what we can see is the new Photojoiner that I've created. I'm going to add another layer and I'm going to drag that all the way down so it's just on top of the background. Okay, so this is my layer 9. I'm going to go over to the colour swatch here and I'm actually going to go for a white background, but you'll see from our do now that David Hockney sometimes uses perhaps a brown background or a grey one. And I'm going to hover over the paint bucket tool, make sure I've got that selected, and with layer 9 selected, I'm just going to click and I'm going to get a white background. Okay. Now, what I want to do now is I want to go back to a couple of the layers. So I'm going to go to layer 8 and I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to go to Rotate. And I'm just going to grab the handlebar a little bit and rotate it slightly. I just want to push that up so it's just nicely in the image. I'm going to do the same with layer 5, Edit, Transform, Rotate. And I'm just going to rotate that slightly. Press the arrow button when you're happy and then you can move it if you need to. I'm going to go to some of the earlier layers I did, so layer 1 in this case. Edit, Transform, Rotate. On the handlebars you see that little arrow and I'm just going to rotate that one. Not sure if I like that gap there, so I'm just going to move that in. Okay, so we can start to build up a Photojoiner where perhaps we have got maybe your image split into 7 or 8 layers and that we started to move those layers around so that we've got them slightly staggered, for instance, here. We've got a slightly different angle on them. So Edit, Transform, Rotate. So I might try that one rotated that way. It's quite nice. And we've started to kind of recreate a Photojoiner in the style of David Hockney. Now, once you've got your image, you will see that obviously we've got our 9 layers here. So this means that this file is really large at the moment and it's going to be quite cumbersome for your Chromebook to deal with. So we're going to go to Layer, we're going to scroll down and we're going to click on Flatten Image. Now you only do this when you're happy that your image is complete. And then you'll see that all of those 9 layers collapse back down into our background layer. So we've just got the one image now. We're going to go File, Export as JPEG. This is the best for saving and printing your images, and you get a huge kind of close-up of your image, so don't worry. Now we don't want to save over your homework, so we want to call this Photojoiner Edit and then put your name or your initials in there so that we don't get confused, and then you can save this. Now it's asking you to confirm about the adverts because Photopea is an online free editing tool that we use a lot in year 9 and year 10. So you can just say yes to that. So you will have noticed that it went into my downloads. Then we can click on that and request that to print or save it back into our Google Classroom and I can print it for you. Now, it may be that actually when you have flattened your image, you're not happy. So remember, you can go back into the history tool. And it may be that actually you want to move it around a little bit. So obviously you can do that. But before you print your image, you must flatten that image. Otherwise, you're going to have some problems. Okay. I'm hoping that we'll get some really nice examples from this today. And I look forward to getting them printed out.